Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. It's time for video number 3 in my tulip card series. The tulip product I'll be using today is from Pretty Pink Posh. This is part of their spring mug editions. There are 2 different tulips on this set. There's a large tulip, stem and leaves, and also a smaller tulip that has 2 different layers. I'll be using both of them and making 2 cards. The other products I'll be using in this video are also from Pretty Pink Posh. I have their Hello Script die, Stitch Torn rectangle die set, pierced Leafy vines plate. For a sentiment, I have their sentiment strips Easter stamp set and also their sentiment strip dies. For pattern paper, I'll be using 2 different collections. One is from Violet Studio. This is their Ombre collection. The other is Ink Drops Rose, and this is from Craft Consortium. I selected this lovely design from the Ink Drops Rose collection and cut out all of the tulip petals. For the background of the card, I'm using the Violet Studio paper collection. I love the soft colors in the Ombre collection, makes beautiful backgrounds. And if you are interested in any of the products I use in this video, I have all of the links in the description box below. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I've already die cut out all of the pieces. This first card will feature 3 of the large pink tulips. I'm adding just a little more ink to the edge of each of the tulips using Catherine Pooler's Pucker Up ink color. I love how the pattern paper I use for the tulips has the look of gold glitter, but there's no glitter on this pattern paper. When I was cutting out all of the tulips, I made sure to place the die on different areas so each tulip had a very different look. After inking up the last tulip, I'll remove the mini stencil mat. I've already cut out the stem and leaves. I'm keeping all the die cut pieces organized in scrapbook.com stack and sort trays. This stem piece does include the leaves, but you can also cut them out separately, and I think it adds a little extra detail. For liquid adhesive, I'm using My Sweet Petunia's Precision Glue Press. I bought the glue press last month, but I've only used it 1 or 2 times. I've never had a problem squeezing the bottle of Barely Art glue, but the glue press has such great reviews, I had to try it. So occasionally you'll see me use it, other times I'll just pull out my small bottle of Barely Art glue. After adhering the individual leaves on the stem, I'll put a tiny bit of glue at the top of the stem and attach the flowers. For the background of the card, I use some of Violet Studio's Ombre paper, and I've already attached it to a card base. I added the fun leafy texture using Pretty Pink Posh's pierced leafy vines plate. I think it adds a fun detail to the background of the card. I will be popping up the flowers using some thin foam dimension. I'm using scrapbook.com's 1mm thickness large rounds. I'll add 1 of the circle foam pieces at the bottom of the tulip, making sure to put it on the end of the stem and the flower. Behind the top portion of the flower, I'm using some of the negative leftover pieces of the foam. There's no reason to let any of that foam go to waste. Behind the stem and the leaves, I'll add some glue, and I'll be adhering all 3 of the tulips on a vellum Stitch Torn rectangle die cut. It's not adhered down yet. First, I want to add the 3 tulips. I'll start with the one in the middle, then I'll adhere the tulip on the right side, and finally the tulip on the left side. Once I have all of them attached, I'll lift up the vellum, and I do have a little bit of the foam sticking on the right side. Luckily, I was able to lift it up. Now I'll put glue on the back side just in the areas behind the tulip die cuts. That way the glue doesn't show through on the vellum. Now I'll attach the rectangle with the 3 pink tulips on the front of my card. For a sentiment, I've already stamped out "Sending a Springtime Hello." I used black ink on some white shimmer cardstock, and I cut out the sentiment and the banner piece using Pretty Pink Posh's Sentiment Strips die set. The light purple paper I use for the sentiment banner is from the same sheet that I use for the background of the card. Since I use pattern paper and it's not super thick, I cut out a second banner from some heavyweight white cardstock. I'll glue the two pieces together. Then I'll add the sentiment in the center. Now I'll flip over the sentiment banner, put foam dimension on the back. I'm using scrapbook.com's 1/4 inch foam, and this is the 1 millimeter thickness, so it won't add a lot of extra dimension. I'll remove the release paper and adhere the sentiment at the bottom of the torn rectangle die cut, and I'm also placing it on top of the tulip stems. You'll see just the end of the stem sticking out underneath the sentiment. Using a white gel pen, I'll add highlights on each of the flowers and also the leaves. I've been on vacation for the last week and a half with my family for spring break. We went to the Grand Canyon area and had so much fun. So I do apologize for the little delay in videos. I think it's been about a week since I posted the last one. So I'm working really hard to get caught up on some video projects. For embellishments, I'm using Pretty Pink Posh's Sparkling Clear Confetti Mix. It'll add a little bit of sparkle to the cards. I'm using the wax tip of scrapbook.com's Pro Pick tool to pick up the confetti. I'll put 3 in the lower left-hand corner and 2 in the upper right-hand corner. Since the confetti doesn't have any adhesive on the back, I'll first add a small drop of glue, pick them up with the Pro Pick tool, then press them in place. At one point, I was trying to pick up a confetti piece. I was wondering why it wasn't picking up with the tool. Then I realized the tool already had one of the confetti pieces on it. The little confetti piece was blending into the wax tip of the tool. So there is my finished card, and I love how this turned out. The 3 large pink tulips are so fun. Now moving on to card number 2. I've already gone ahead and adhered my card front onto a card base, and both cards of this video are American Standard A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. This card will be featuring lots of the small tulips, and I cut out the tulips from the same pink and gold glitter looking pattern paper. I've already assembled most of them, but I'll do a couple of them here with you. There's the background piece of the tulip and then the front piece where you can see 2 separate petals. And I love how they have this stitch detail. I'm only adding glue at the bottom of that front piece. That way I can curl up those 2 individual petals. I'm using the same stem and leaves. I'll just adhere the individual leaves on that background piece. And for some of the tulips, I cut out the stem with leaf, but I'm cutting off the leaves. Now I'll adhere the pink tulips all in a row. I'll alternate the tulips with the stems and the tulips with the leaves. For the tulips that are in the back row, I'll put glue on the back and adhere those down. For the tulips that are more toward the front, I will pop them up using the same small round 1 millimeter foam from scrapbook.com. And I'm only putting foam behind the flower, not the leaves. And I'll put glue behind the stem and leaves. I'll start on the left side, putting a tulip in the back, adding a tulip on the front, and just work my way across until I have a lovely row of pink tulips. If you're wondering why this set is called Spring Mug Editions, it was designed to work with Pretty Pink Posh's original winter mug die set. It includes the large mug, and Pretty Pink Posh keeps releasing add-on sets to work with the mug. So you could fill your mug with lovely tulips, and you could use the large tulip for the center of the mug and create a fun shaker. I love Pretty Pink Posh products. They have so many stamps, dies, stencil sets, lots of different shaker mixes. And what's really fun for me, they're a local small business since they're located in Western Washington. And I love being able to support small businesses. I have just a few more tulips to adhere on the right side of the card. I wasn't sure how many I would be able to fit on the card, so I did cut out a couple of extras. I'll just tuck this final tulip on the very right side. For a sentiment, I'll be adding the word hello. This is Pretty Pink Posh's Hello script die, and I cut it out from black cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it about center above the tulips. The Spring Mug Edition set also includes some adorable little butterflies. I use more of the Violet Studio pattern paper for the butterfly wings. For the body of the butterfly, I use some dark blue cardstock from my stash, and for the butterfly antenna, I use some silver mirror cardstock from my stash. I'll adhere the 3 pieces together with some glue. And I love how the butterfly wings and the body have some of the faux stitch detail. I will pop up the butterflies with some foam dimension. I'm adding just a little bit of foam behind the body. That way I can fold up the wings for a little more dimension. And I'm using some of the negative pieces of the foam for the butterflies. I did end up cutting those foam pieces just a tiny bit too long, so I am using my scissors to trim off the extra bit of foam. I'll put 2 butterflies in the upper left-hand corner next to the sentiment. I did need to readjust one of the butterflies. I don't want them overlapping each other. And the final butterfly I'll adhere on the right-hand side, and it'll be sitting on one of the tulip leaves. I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted that last butterfly, but ended up putting it on one of the tulip's leaves. For embellishments, I'll be using more Pretty Pink Posh's Sparkling Clear Confetti Mix. I'll put 2 in the lower right-hand corner underneath one of the leaves, 1 on the left-hand side underneath the tulip's leaf, and 2 around the butterflies in the upper left-hand corner. I'll first add a small drop of glue. Use Scrapbook.com's Pro Pick tool to pick up the confetti, then adhere it in place. For a final finishing touch, I'll add a little bit of sparkle to the butterfly's wings. I'm using Scrapbook.com's Clear Glitter Brush Marker. Just lightly brushing the wings, and it'll have this beautiful sparkle finish. And the nice thing about the glitter marker, it doesn't make a big glittery mess. But if you donate your cards to a place that doesn't want any glitter, I would suggest leaving that off since it will wipe off on your finger. Now here's another look at the 2 cards I made using Pretty Pink Posh's Spring Mug Edition die set. I used the large tulip and also the smaller layered tulip. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. And if you've missed out on my first 2 Tulip Card Series videos, be sure to go and check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.